Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider for Clutch Points. And today on the show, we will be talking about whatever you want to talk for the most part. It's going to be like mostly mailbag, some draft thoughts as we are a week away. Did some poking around to see, who the Lakers are kind of working out. Didn't really find much. Not to say that they aren't taking it seriously. They are working some guys out. Actually, Silver Screen and Roll has compiled a list of guys who, we have found out that the Lakers have brought in for a workout. We have a name that I have been talking about here on the show. John Collins apparently is linked to the Lakers by way of Utah. My old boss, David Locke of Locked On Jazz, apparently said that the Lakers and Jazz have talked about Walker Kessler potentially for multiple picks. The Lakers have 2 picks they can move, so I guess that's technically multiple. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we're going to dive on into all of the mailbags as I try to knock out this show before my daughter's game this evening. Turns out she's like this scrappy little defender. And that is the antithesis to how her dad used to play basketball. So that's been fun to watch. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive on in and get to some of these, draft thoughts, and then all of your questions, as many of them that I can answer before I have to peace out. Quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button. Please do hit that like button. Those are important buttons for the show. Al Gore's rhythm is powerful up in these streets, in these YouTube streets. So please do everything that you can to help the show as best you can. And if you guys are listening to this in the morning via pod, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you find your podcast, preferably on Odyssey, because I am a company man. And then like and share and review the podcast there. The best way to get your questions is to leave them in the form of a 5-star review on iTunes. And we have one, it looks like, from there. Let's go ahead and like I said, dive on it. So I'm recording this 1 week away from the NBA draft. There's obviously the first pick is a foregone conclusion. It's going to be Cooper Flagg going to Dallas. Then apparently there is some debate with, I think the Spurs are getting ready to take Dylan Harper second. And then after that, it's kind of all over the place with Philly. There are people who like Ace Bailey and his upside. There are questions about his maturity, though. So we'll see what comes of that. That's all stuff that doesn't really impact the Lakers, other than the fact that the Lakers are eventually going to have to play those guys. The Lakers will not be active in the draft until number 55, or, maybe they try to get into the early to mid second round just to give themselves another cost controlled project, which hopefully is a fruitful one. The Lakers definitely are going to be, they have begun the workout process with some of these guys. Again, I'm here on Silver Screen and Roll. You have Isan Almansa, you have Umar Ballo, you have Lamont Butler, CJ Huntley, Isaac Nogues, Clifford Omuruyi, and Samson Johnson is the extent of their list there. I don't know anything about those people that I just mentioned. I've never really been a big draft guy. Once the Lakers take their guy, I tend to dive in to the tape and stuff like that after the fact. But One thing to keep an eye on, even if the Lakers don't buy into the second round, um, their two ways. There's been a lot more connectivity between the two-way market and the parent team. They're the South Bay Lakers and the actual Lakers have a much more fruitful relationship right now than they did under Darvin Ham. So that's another tool in the toolbox for the Lakers. Undrafted free agents is another thing that the Lakers are going to be active with. Agents want their guys to get to the Lakers, especially as the Lakers vie for a championship or embark on the Luka Doncic era. Agents are definitely going to want their people there, or their clients there. So we'll see how that comes of it. But yeah, as far as I got some questions over the last few days or so, and then certainly after I asked for questions on Twitter, people are asking like, "Hey, where's the Lakers draft buzz?" And it's like they have the number 55 pick, and there is just very little buzz that's going to be kicked up by drafting that late in the second round. The other part of it too is by the time you get to 55, and basically throughout the 50s, by that time, most players' agents are asking teams to not draft them. We saw the opposite last year where Clutch wanted Bronny drafted by the Lakers. But for the most part, you actually see more of what we saw with Austin Reeves back when he was signed as an undrafted free agent, where these smart agencies prefer the flexibility so that they can pick the best situation for their player. It's kind of why the Lakers have stumbled when it comes to including the number 55 pick in any kind of trade talks, because everybody's like, I mean, yeah, we'll take it, but it's not even the lottery ticket that it may have been once upon a time, where you might find a diamond in the rough. And because before, agents wanted their guys drafted, and now we have seen kind of a shift there where agents would really prefer their guys don't get drafted unless they get drafted by the team that they want to arrive to anyway. But yeah, for the most part, it's a kind of a different vibe with the number 55 pick, and it makes it really difficult for the Lakers they're doing their workouts and they'll maintain communication with agents after the workout. But for the most part, it's not how it used to be seen. And that makes it kind of difficult to track who the Lakers may or may not be interested in. Outside of that, I don't really have much else to talk about. So I'm going to dive on in. We have a few comments here on in the comment section. We have some on Twitter that I asked for as well. So I will lean into to that as an option too. Let's start with iTunes, which is where we always start. QBreezy12 writes, there's rumblings of the Lakers prioritizing the 2026 offseason when they'll have more flexibility. How does that affect this offseason? Would that make them out on Claxton, in on Gafford? Who else? Who do they target in 2026? All right. So the thinking there, I believe, is that after LeBron retires, you would have more flexibility. You'll see some of these, expiring contracts off of the books and all of that stuff as well. I'm kind of hoping that the Lakers take a look at some guys. Like I just threw together and I put it in Slack. But like, let's say the Clippers get in on and they are apparently lurking according to reports. I forget who reported that, but the Clippers are lurking in the Kevin Durant situation. And if Phoenix decides they aren't going to completely bottom out right away, maybe they trade for some more kind of not win now talent, but compete now talent. And if they do that, but decide they don't want like an extra couple of years from some guys, Bojan Bogdanovic or Bogdan, Bogdanovic, he has 2 years at 16 million apiece. You have Derek Jones Jr. for 2 years at 10 million apiece. If the Lakers decide to use their expiring contracts, like in this case, I have the Clippers getting KD, the Suns getting Norman Powell, Bogdan, and Chris Dunn, and then Maxi's expiring, and then the Lakers getting Derek Jones Jr. Maybe the Suns ask for Gabe Vincent since they haven't had a point guard in a few years. But either way, if the Lakers can maybe grease the wheels here and walk out of that trade with Derek Jones Jr., who we know worked well with Luka before, super athletic, crazy bouncy wing, nice active hands, all that stuff too. So like that's something that I've been thinking a lot about. And yeah, that means that you technically have another year of Derek Jones Jr. on your books, but that's the kind of thing I'm okay with. $10 million for Derek Jones Jr. is not like fat on your books. So I would be cool with taking him in and sending Maxi out, even though it kind of hurts some of your financial flexibility. It improves your roster, and he plays a role that the Lakers very clearly need. So that's one possibility. But when you ask about prioritizing the 2026 offseason, what you're mostly getting at is LeBron's future. And even he is saying that he doesn't quite know what he's thinking beyond this year. He basically just plays out the season, sees how his body feels, and then makes a decision. And it does kind of complicate the Lakers from a organizational planning standpoint, but it's also like, oh shucks, we have LeBron again. So I like, even if the Lakers open up some flexibility in that regard, and it all kind of also depends on what kind of contract, if like, because I still think LeBron opts out, gets whatever number he wants from the Lakers, keeps his no trade clause, and then maybe gets an extra year via player option. But if that's how it plays out, yeah, that hurts your flexibility, but it again improves your roster, and that's kind of the whole point. But if the Lakers, let's say LeBron does retire, the example to look to is how the Clippers were able to utilize the extra flexibility that they had when Paul George walked for nothing. They opened up their full mid-level exception. I believe that's how they got Derek Jones Jr. They I think they even used their biannual exception. Like they were able to utilize that flexibility, I believe, and they kept James Harden obviously. So if the Lakers do lose LeBron via retirement after this season and that 2026 offseason, you do have more financial avenues to improving the team. That'd be good. But I wouldn't advise, even though there are times where I've talked about the stopgap year, I wouldn't advise the Lakers to, without seeing what LeBron looks like this year, to start planning for the post LeBron era, because like they've been planning for the post LeBron AD era for a few years, and all he has continued to do is, stiff arm Father Time, and it's been pretty incredible to watch. And it's also been pretty frustrating to watch because it has felt like the Lakers have kind of wasted those efforts. So I still say their focus has to be, and I'm told it is, but their focus has to be on maximizing this opportunity they have with Luka, with LeBron, whether that's with Austin Reeves, whether it's without him, whether it's with Rui Hachimura, whether it's without him. No matter what else you have to do to around those two guys to make it work, that's gotta be your top priority. And then if you are more flexible in 2026, then okay, cool. Let's see what you're able to do with that increased flexibility. The next one here, we have a super comment, which means All right. I get boards for days. Writes one. Have you heard anything about Utah's willingness to trade Kessler this time around? And anything about the Collins Lakers report? Two, do you think the front office use a roster spot on 55? Um, it could be a draft and stash kind of situation. Look, one, Bronny is going to be better this year than he was last year. So you aren't wasting that roster spot in the same way that you did last year. And I know wasting sounds harsh, but they did, right? Bronny never really helped their basketball chances. You wasted a roster spot for most of the year on Christian Wood. You wasted a roster spot for most of the year on Cam Reddish. Um, yes, Markieff Morris didn't play, but I think that's less of a waste than Wood and Reddish because Morris is seen as more valuable within the locker room. So maybe they do something like that again, whether it's with Morris specifically or somebody else. But I think it's probably a decent chance that it's Morris because of his relationship with LeBron and his relationship with Luca. There have not been many guys who can bridge that gap. So maybe that's why they value him. But yeah, as far as it goes with number 55 specifically, I I would probably say it's no, I think they trade it. I think they wind up trading it just because they have so few assets to move here. You have your 2031 or 32 pick. You have your expiring contracts. You have Austin. You have Rui. And that's basically it. So if you take the number 55 pick off the table and you go into the draft anticipating using it, that kind of complicates things. The one thing that I have heard people kind of talk about a little bit is not people close to the Lakers in this case, but one of the questions y'all have asked a lot is does it make sense for the Lakers to maybe trade 55 to a team for a future first rounder? And in that case, I wouldn't hate it because it gives you a little bit more runway on utilizing that draft pick while it is still a draft pick. That's it. That's a fun hypothetical. It's one thing. It would be a pretty creative move. That's not something that the Lakers are typically known for, but I could, I would dig it. Now, to the second part of that question, do you think the front office? Oh no, first question, sorry. Have you heard anything about Utah's willingness to trade Kessler this time around and anything about the Collins Lakers report? So, full disclosure, when I started throwing Collins' name out there, and this happens a lot where you kind of test balloon something that you're hearing whispers about and not anything that you're necessarily ready to go on the record with, but somebody that you hear some noise about. Uh, Sometimes you'll start test ballooning trade packages there just to see what people's reaction would be, and that was kind of what was going on there with John Collins. Um, Collins, it's tricky because he makes just enough money to where trading for him is can be kind of tough. I'm pulling up Fanspo right now. So if you go to Utah's books, and they are way down there at the bottom, and it's really cool. This Fanspo is doing this really cool thing where they put their ads at the bottom of the screen where you would look to get to Utah. And that makes it kind of tricky. So John Collins makes 26.5 million next year. He's on an expiring, which is kind of nice. Again, only 27 years old. Absolutely nuts. I would have sworn he was much older. So he's probably got plenty of bounce left in those legs. So John Collins, you add him into the trade. I know there's I saw somebody here in the live comments asking about Collins and Kessler. Is there any way that you could get there? So if you're doing that, you're probably including you have Rui probably going to Utah. You have Dalton definitely going to Utah. You would have expirings going to Utah. So you're looking at Maxi and Gabe, their expirings going to Utah. That gets you to that gets you all the way to 44 million. So you could probably take one of those expirings out of the equation. I personally would like to keep Gabe over Maxi, just for the sake of we saw him play basketball recently and it didn't look so bad. So in this case, you have John Collins going out. You have Walker Kessler also going out at 4.8 million. Nope, I don't need to see his player card. Walker Kessler goes to the Lakers. You have $31.4 million coming in, and you have $33.2 million going out. So contractually, that's looking good. In this case, you are definitely including an unprotected first for Kessler. You are probably removing any protection that you have on their pick that they owe next year of the Lakers. You're probably also throwing in a pick swap, and you're probably also including number 55. So let me know what you guys think of that, where it would be Maxi, Dalton, and Rui for Walker, Kessler, and John Collins. And then you're also giving them every bit of draft capital that you have at your disposal, and see where that gets you. But I like the deal personally. I don't necessarily love trading Rui to get back somebody else who plays his position, but you are getting Walker Kessler, your starting center. I think John Collins becomes more playable next to Walker Kessler moving forward. So I like that. I'll go ahead and really quickly screen grab this. I didn't include draft capital, so nope, don't do that. Shoot. Dang it. I won't screen grab that actually. But yeah, that would essentially be the makings of the deal there. I know Utah people are going to say you have to include Austin in that trade. I don't think the Lakers would. But if you could get, you trade Dalton, you trade Rui, the 2031 pick, the number 55 pick, you remove protections, you include one of your expirings there. I would prefer to include Maxi Kleba. Maybe they ask for Gabe because Gabe played more recently. If they prefer Gabe over Maxi, fine. I would do whatever I could to get that deal done. So I'd be curious to see what you guys think on that front. But is there anything to it? Yeah, absolutely. The Lakers and Utah Jazz have been in contact, since the end of both of their seasons. There has been a lot of I wouldn't go so far from I'm not as close obviously to the Utah Jazz as others are. I haven't sensed a gigantic shift from Utah's stance on Walker Kessler, but there has been a shift, I would say, since Danny Ainge's son took over there. So yeah, I think if you could get both of those guys, then you're giving up basically everything, and your roster at that point is basically those two guys, and then maybe you use your taxpayer mid-level exception on Bruce Brown. You bring back LeBron, and your rotation would be Austin, Luka, LeBron. You're probably starting Dorian in this case, and then Walker Kessler, and then you have Bruce Brown coming off of your bench. Ideally, maybe you keep Gabe, and then you have Gabe and Collins off of your bench. You have Bruce Brown off of your bench, and that's a pretty good 8-man rotation right there, right? Off of the top of my head. I'm doing all of this as you guys are asking, but I think that's a pretty good rotation. You lose Dalton. You have Vando still, so he's your 9th man. Yeah, I think that's a solid 9-man rotation that you arrive at there. So that would be probably the extent of their work, other than some veteran minimum signings and stuff like that. But if that's your 9-man core before you get into some of your lottery ticket veteran minimum signings. In this case, I don't think have to, maybe you use the taxpayer mid-level on Capella, but I think in this case, if you draft or if you trade for Walker Kessler, I think you could probably get away with a minimum center, or a minimum salary center being your backup. Um, and because I think Kessler would probably play 20-25 minutes a night, maybe even more. But yeah, I would say that's it. That's an interesting one. I'll go back and I'll try to find David's you know take on it. I'll ask around as well about what's going on, but it's certainly a good thing to ask about, and it's a subject that I believe we're going to be coming back to quite a bit. Let's go to the next question here, which I am seeing from Twitter. Let's see. Trayvon James, how do we access your mailbag? Do we send questions here? Do we send the questions here? I mean, I just answered it on Twitter or from Twitter, so I would say that's a pretty good avenue to take. But no, I the best ways, we'll rank them again without having you spending money. Number one, 5-star iTunes review. You leave a question there, and I will answer that 100 times out of 100. If it's 5 stars, I'm going to ignore the ones that are less than 5 stars. The next best way is the super comment. I do have to give priority to the people who are willing to spend their hard-willing dollars on getting their subject or comment read here. I miss them every so often. If I do miss them, please let me know. Hit me with a DM. My DMs are open on Twitter. Hit me with a DM and let me know that I missed one, and I will come back to it either on the next show or I'll just answer it for you there in that moment. And then the next best way after that, I have a Discord mailbag, which has been pretty stagnant recently. So that's a good way to get questions in, because I get every single Discord notification from the Lounge Discord, and then probably Twitter, and then live YouTube comments. That's probably how I would rank all of those. But yeah, that's the surest means to get to me is iTunes or super comment. All right, the next question here comes from 3-level scorer, who writes, Anthony, apologies if you have talked about this in the podcast and I haven't listened to it yet. Sure, the Lakers need a center or two, but are there any plans to get some decent guard/wing defenders? Dorian Finney-Smith can't be the only one. No, he cannot. So one thing, I'm going to do the Rob Pelinka thing and kind of weasel out a little bit and say that one thing that the Lakers are kind of planning for is a full offseason of Jared Vanderbilt, where he can kind of work on his game. He won't have to rehab and stuff, and they're hoping for a lot more from him next season. He would be one of their, if not their best wing defender. Now, he needs to be even like bad. I would take bad offensively with Vanderbilt. You just don't be a disaster. That's all I ask. So we'll see where he's able to get to there. Now, outside of that, in this alternate universe where the Lakers trade for Walker Kessler and John Collins, in that case, you could use that taxpayer mid-level on a Bruce Brown, on a Gary Harris, and those guys can be kind of point of attack defenders. That's an option that you could go down there. But outside of that, look, everybody's trying to get wings. So unfortunately, it's kind of tough because the Lakers have to commit real resources to bringing in the center that they desperately need. And then maybe if they have an expiring and maybe a pick swap or something like that, and some team wants to get off of longer term money on a wing who is still pretty good, but not necessarily on their timeline, maybe that's an avenue that you can go down. But the Lakers' top priority is center. And then they know that they need to get quicker on the perimeter. It's just that there are only so many things you could do when you're armed with only one first rounder this year, a few pick swaps that aren't going to be worth anything because you have Luca in your organization, a bunch of expiring contracts, the number 55 pick, Rui and Austin and Dalton. It's just there's just not a ton that the Lakers can work with here, and it's really going to limit what they're able to do elsewhere across the roster. Let's go into the comments in here, the live comments. Brian Fritz is asking, if Rui were to be traded for draft capital, what do you think he's worth on the market? So I was talking to an agent about this, and he said that one of the things that he's running or that he's noticing is teams are really, really valuing plug and play type players, right? And we just saw it with Mikal Bridges a couple last offseason, right? Or whenever the Knicks traded for him. The Magic just made a similar trade, going out and getting Desmond Bane. Both of those guys are, it's a bit of a slight to call them role players. They're more than that, but they are like super easy to just stick on a roster and know they're gonna function at a high level. And Rui is tricky in this regard because he doesn't always use his physical skills the way that he should. Uh, he's got a slow release and not the best instincts. So like he's not as quick a decision maker, which makes it kind of difficult to just say, yeah, that guy's going to work in our offense. He kind of needs like this particular set of circumstances, um, that are really kind of tricky to work with, and it lowers his price tag a little bit. So I would probably say Rui, if the Lakers just went into rebuild mode or whatever, or another possibility here would be like a 3-team trade where the Lakers send Rui to a team that would be more interested in using him right now, and that team would send, would the team that would send the Lakers a player that they're looking for would bring in draft capital from that third team. Um, if that was the case, I would probably say Rui is probably worth like 2.5 firsts, where I would, you get, and we're probably not talking about elite picks here. You're probably looking at, mid to late lottery picks, probably 2 of them in either a really late first rounder or an early second rounder kind of a deal. That's probably, I would say, Rui's kind of going price. It's also tricky with Rui because he's on an expiring contract. Now he's going to be happy to sign wherever he gets traded to. Seems like I would probably, like that's the difference between him and Austin is that Austin is definitely not signing his extension wherever he goes. Rui, there's a better chance, I believe, of him signing his extension wherever he winds up than with Austin. So that makes him maybe a little bit easier to trade for as well. So I would say, yeah, like probably 2.5 first, I would say for Rui. And it's something that the Lakers basically, essentially, and Aaron and I talked about this way back in the day when he was on the show, but essentially the way that these negotiations go is, let's say Team X has player Y that the Lakers want, but Team X doesn't want player Z that the Lakers are offering up. And what Team X will do is come back to the Lakers and say, yeah, we don't really want that player. We want draft capital. So then what they'll do is what the Lakers will do is they'll go out and they'll canvass the league to see what kind of draft capital they could get for player Z in this case. We'll just say Rui in this case. And then they'll go back to team X and they'll say, all right, team uh third team in this trade because I started too late in the alphabet. But like team team Z in this case is like, yeah, we're willing to give up X amount of draft capital for Rui, and then you go back to that third team and you ask if that amount of draft capital is enough to offer up that player. And that's how a lot of like that's like an extreme bare bones three-team negotiation, how that normally goes. And and by the way, I was actually kind of surprised that the Magic and Grizzlies were able to arrive at only a two-team deal. One of the things that we have been hearing a lot about is how a lot of these deals are going to be more kind of three-team oriented, or they're going to expand, um, which involves a lot of that draft capital and expiring contracts and stuff like that. And that's the kind of thing that I kind of have my ear extra perked up for is like, well, maybe just maybe the Lakers could offer that financial flexibility and, really get a valuable player in return for it. So, yeah, it's a good question about Rui's value in terms of draft capital now, but it also allows us to kind of talk through the exercise of how the Lakers may turn Rui into the player that they're looking for. Let's see. Pastor O, why can't the Lakers use AR to grab wing help and a couple first rounders? Well, again, um, I think Austin is a relatively easy plug and play type player. And we did see him struggle with catching and shooting, and we've seen it for a couple years running in the postseason to where it's a bit of a dip there. That makes it a little difficult. But the biggest thing with Austin is whoever trades for him has to be confident that they're going to be able to retain Austin after he opts out of his contract next season, because he's going to opt out. Like it's he's not going to sign the extension this summer. It's not enough money. It's like 20 something million bucks when his camp is anticipating he could make anywhere upwards of 35 to maybe even $40 million a year. And like, if you're the team that trades for Austin, how willing are you going to be to part with everything that you would normally part with to get somebody like Austin, who averaged 25-5 last year? Um, Normally that player entering his prime on a cheap contract should fetch all the draft picks. But the problem is, because of the extension situation, a lot of these teams are reluctant to do so. Or like there's this cliche in business where employers are never going to let uh bad news be wasted, right? And we've seen how many giant companies that are clearly doing fine financially lay off people for the fear of recession. And in this case, executives are basically going to go to the Lakers. The Lakers did this with Dallas, where it was like, we can't talk to Luka. And seeing as we can't possibly we can't talk to Luka, and we don't know to what extent he's interested in signing with the Lakers, even though they probably knew he was probably going to be open to signing long term and staying in with the Lakers for the remainder of his career. They still were able to use that leverage, the fear of the recession, to go out and get Luka for that much more of a discount. And so for a lot of these teams, when they have these conversations, even though they probably know, because like I know Austin's camp relatively well. They're pretty easy to work with. And like Austin is a very easy guy to get along with as well. So like, I don't think anybody is actually all that worried that they would lose Austin for nothing. But if you can turn that concern into one additional asset or having to send out one fewer asset for Austin, that's what teams are going to do. So, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Why can't the Lakers use Austin to just go out and fix all of their problems? It doesn't necessarily work that way because of the contractual situation. John Howe, I hope I'm saying it right. A-Man, would Jalen Suggs and Jonathan Isaac fit in with Luca? This would include an AR-15 in the trade package. Do you know for a fact Rob is active now with trades? Yes, I do. I can report and have reported plenty that that Rob has been very active on the phones. He likes to talk with Joe Cronin there in Portland. He likes to negotiate with Danny Ainge. He just that's what every team does basically is they make their rounds, they make their calls, they send their emails, they get back to each other, and they're constantly either checking for the prices of their own assets and the value of their own assets, or they're maintaining a consistent communication line so that you never feel like you're just reaching out to somebody just for information. So Rob is very active on the phones. Now, could the Lakers get Jalen Suggs and Jonathan Isaac for Austin Reeves? They love Jalen Suggs in Orlando, and their season went to shit when he got hurt. So I would be pretty surprised if Suggs would be made available in an Austin trade. Jonathan Isaac, I think he can be gotten. There are just enough people who just don't really like dealing with him in the NBA that I don't know how, like, to what extent teams are like, you know, falling over themselves to bring Jonathan Isaac into their locker room. So, yeah, could that happen? I guess it could. I'd have to look at the numbers here. Let's see. I'll just do it really quickly. Here's Orlando. Here is the Lakers. So Suggs makes $35 million. What? Why? I know why. He's one of the better perimeter defenders in the sport. But wow, that is a lot of Jalen Suggs. Um, Austin Reeves makes 13.9. Jonathan Isaac makes 15. So in order to get those two players, you need to send out 50 total million dollars. Austin makes just under 14. So you're probably including all of the expirings. So there goes Gabe, there goes Kleba. That gets you right now to 36.4. So you need to send out another 13.6. So and also another thing to keep in mind here, when you're making fake trades with the Lakers, you're gonna want to work to get the Lakers taking back less money, and ideally slightly less money than they send out, so that they aren't hard capped at the first apron. Would I be surprised if eventually they wind up hard capped at the first apron? No. But I do think the Lakers would like to enter the season able to jump into the second apron, if at all possible. But jump above the first apron if at all possible. So in this case, you need to send out, basically another 14 mil. Let's say you include, maybe you include Vando in this equation, seeing as Orlando is clearly going to be kind of up against it financially. That gets you to 11.5, and then Shake gets you there. So financially, you're looking at Shake, Vando, Maxi, Gabe, and Austin for Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs. You're sending out additional draft capital. You definitely are going to have to include the 2031 or 32 first rounder that you have, probably 55 as well, maybe a pick swap. No, I don't think you have to send out all that. I wonder what they would do there. I wonder how that would look. But financially, that gets you there. Contractually, that gets you all the way there. Those 5 players for those 2 coming back. Um, and in that case, the Lakers take back 1 million less, which means they wouldn't be hard capped anymore. I don't think Orlando goes for that though, because they just love Jalen Suggs a lot. They love him to the tune, obviously, of 35 million a year, which absolutely dumbfounded me. That's a lot. I Before I get dunked on for those Jalen Suggs comments, I have to recalibrate my brain for the amounts of money these guys are going to be making. Um, like my favorite Lakers teams of all time employed Lamar Odom, and I remember thinking like, "Damn, Lamar on 10 is a lot of money." And now it's like Lamar Odom on 10 would be one of the best values in the current NBA that you could possibly get. So I do need to just kind of like check myself a little bit and recognize how much some of these guys are making. But that's still, man, Jalen Suggs for 35 mil. Given how he has struggled to stay on the court, that's tough. All right, I'm gonna answer one more from Twitter and then get out of here. This is a kind of more hypothetical one. Um, Alex AC717 writes, taking it back to 2018, 2019, do you think that team has a chance at winning if they don't trade for AD and add free agents instead? No, because like AD was so effing good in the bubble. There is just no way to win that championship without everything that Anthony Davis was doing to win. Was doing for that team. He shot the ball really well. He played some of the best defense I have ever seen. Just an unbelievable player, and there is no way to kind of add up to what AD was bringing to the table via free agency. That way, he was so effing good. Um, Now I know a lot of times people like to ask the question, would the Lakers have been better off not trading for Anthony Davis? Would those baby Lakers, a lot of them have gone on to really help a lot of these teams. But again, LeBron and AD were such a special combination that I just don't think they would have eventually turned some of those young Lakers into another star eventually. And I wish the latter part of the Anthony Davis tenure would have gone better? Absolutely. Were there frustrations that I had with the way that he kind of approached his role in the Lakers or the way that he kind of sees himself as a basketball player? Absolutely. But in no world am I opining for Larry Nance Jr. when I got to watch Anthony Davis play for my favorite basketball team. All right. That is, I believe, going to do it. So here's the plan. I would like to write something again, maybe on this John Collins situation for Clutch Points, and I'll look to narrate that a little bit later tonight. I have to get all of this done before Avery's game, which we have to be out the door at a little early because I got to go buy her a basketball. So as far as this show goes, that's it. So please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on your way out, and then tune back in tomorrow night after game 6 when Raj and I get together and break that down. And then keep an eye out for whatever it is I do write whenever I get a chance to write it. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the super comments and the 5-star reviews on iTunes. That stuff helps us quite a bit. And until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.